find seats, and Maxime will be joining us. There he is. No, it isn't. Okay, so I'll gavel us in and get us going. So welcome to meeting number 50 of the Standing Committee on Science and Research. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of June 23rd, 2022. Members are attending in person in the room, and we do have a member remote today. I'd also make a few comments for the benefits of the witnesses and the members. We will have, hopefully, a witness joining us virtually. We're having a little bit of technical issues, but for the people that are participating remotely, if you can choose your language of choice on the bottom of your screen, English, French, or the floor. And also for a video conference, if you can mute yourself and activate your mic only when you're speaking and address the comments through me. Although this room is equipped with a powerful audio system, we have had some feedback events. So if you can be extremely careful, because this can be harmful for our translators and actually for us as well. If there is a feedback event, remove your earphone immediately, but try and keep feedback to a minimum by keeping your audio devices away from the microphone. The most common cause of sound feedback is from our devices, so make sure that they are muted and well away from your microphone. If your neighbor's microphone is turned on as well, watch out for that. In the order to prevent incidents and safeguard the hearing health of our interpreters, I invite participants to ensure that they speak into the microphone in which their headset is plugged in, and to avoid manipulating earbuds by placing them on the table away from your microphone when they're not in use. In accordance with the committee's routine motion concerning connection tests for witnesses, I'm informing the committee that I was going to say all witnesses have completed their check, but we will do a check as we had to last meeting, mid-meeting, and then bring in our witness once that check has been completed. So to get the meeting started, pursuant to Standing Order 10831 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, the committee commences its study on the Government of Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs. And it's my pleasure to welcome as an individual Chantal Miller. You'll have 5 minutes to start your comments, and I'll give you a signal when you're getting really close to the end. But I'll turn the floor over to you, Ms. Miller, and thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to speak today as a graduate student on our topic. As mentioned, my name is Chantal Miller, and I am currently a PhD student at McMaster University. My journey as a grad student began in 2018 after I finished my undergrad in mechanical engineering. I decided I was not quite ready to leave academia, and I was fortunate enough to join a top-tier research group that is focused on community energy sharing that highlights reducing greenhouse gas emissions. After finishing my master's, I decided to stick with the program and continue on with my PhD solely because I believe in my research topic, and I believe that my research will have a positive influence on future generations. Studying at this level has allowed me to surpassed any of my expectations as to how in-depth and thorough research can be and is. Like many other graduate students and postdoctoral fellows, our time at our universities has greatly increased our individual understanding of specialized topics, our contributions to research fields, and our preparedness to enter industry after our time in school. Also, like many other graduate students, the only thing that has not increased during this time has been our funding. As I know it has been stated before in previous meetings, graduate award values for Canada's tri-agencies has not increased in the last 2 decades. From my perspective, this lack of increase has not been seen in any other sector in Canada, yet research and innovation has been labeled a driving force to keep Canada at the forefront of industry. With the increased cost of housing, food, gas, and just living, the value of these once highly competitive scholarships and fellowships has greatly diminished. When considering to pursue graduate studies or a postdoctoral fellowship, this funding amount can be a make it or break it point for individuals. Individuals need to have the financial freedom, or at the very least, financial support, in order to consider graduate studies. This does not create an inclusive environment, as prospective students who do not have the financial means or alternative support may not be financially able to attend grad school. Our scholarships are our main source of income during our studies, with grants and employment such as teaching assistantships supplementing this value. From my personal experience as someone who has sought out additional employment, oftentimes it can be difficult to find an additional job that is accommodating to our study schedule. For individuals who have been fortunate enough to be awarded with additional scholarships, there can be a capped number of hours per week of part-time work permitted. Graduate students and postdoctoral fellows want to study and progress in their research. As graduate students, our research is our full-time job, and we treat it as such. So there is no reason why we should need to seek additional employment to make ends meet. That being said, I do need to address the added stress due to finances. From my experience, and when talking with my cohort of grad students, our research tends to occupy our mind at all times and can be very stressful. That is not to say that this stress is a bad thing, as we have chosen to pursue a graduate degree, and sometimes feeling stress is just an indication of how deeply we care for our research. However, when individuals have added stress because they worry about their housing situations, how to support their family and children, or the rising cost of food, this is when the threshold of good stress is surpassed. The added mental strain and missed opportunities due to finances is not advantageous for any individual. Missed opportunities can be as small as not being able to attend a social gathering because of the associated cost, or as big as not being able to invest in putting down roots and purchasing a home, or even being able to afford to rent a home that is not a shared accommodation with multiple other individuals. All of these are things that hinder the quality of life as a grad student. To conclude, I just want to say thank you again for you all inviting me here as a witness, as well as calling on other graduate students and postdoctoral fellows to hear directly from those who are affected by this funding. It is my hope that what I have shared here today will help strengthen the argument and encourage increasing the funding amounts for graduate scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We are just about ready to connect. I think we were almost connected to our second presenter, and I'm just going to get a signal to see if we suspend to have her give us the testimony before we start our questioning. Okay, we're just about there, so we'll just suspend for just a few minutes and get her connected and sound checked. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, but don't leave the room. Thanks. round. So we'll go through the first round, and as we did last time, maybe we could suspend at the end of the first round of questions if we're able to get Brandon Priya and Meraldaran on the line. So the first questions for 6 minutes. We've had time to prepare our questions. And the first one is from Corey Tucker for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chantel, for your testimony today and your presentation earlier. I, too, am quite concerned about students' mental health and stress that they're under with all the pressures. Could you elaborate a little bit more on either yourself or fellow students? What has the cost of living crunch and inflation, how has that affected your ability to study? And have you heard of other students having troubles with the cost of living?
Yeah. So cost of living for me personally, when I did not have a significant other to depend on for finances, mental health wise, it would be a little bit more of a struggle to kind of make sure that my budgeting for like the month or a semester was very well done. And I'd have to think of, okay, this amount is going to rent, this is going to food, how much is left over for things I can do that I enjoy that will help make a student happy. So going out with friends, or even simple things like a subscription to like music or anything like that, anything that will kind of direct our attention away from studying during when we're not studying, like in the evenings and things, to things that will just positively affect our mental health.
Much different than when I was going to university with some of the pressures. We similar but different now. They're much more, and we've heard of students having to rely on food banks or on some, unfortunately, living in homeless shelters. Has it? I believe you're at McMaster, right? Have you heard stories like that on campus?
I have heard stories of students needing to reach out and go to food banks in order to get food. For me personally, one thing I did in my master's was I would purchase a large sandwich at lunch and actually eat half of it for lunch and half of it for dinner in order to save on food cost for that day. I know that's a small example, but I've definitely heard and seen my fellow friends purchasing reduced produce items that are a little less of high quality, but it's saving you money.
Yeah. Which isn't good for one's health or mental health, not having nutritious food, which is a concern. And there's you talked about hearing from government that technology and innovation is so important for our future, but then you hear that some of the supports haven't increased in decades. Lots of words, very little action on this. Just switching a little bit on the line of questioning about your studies, because you spoke about the geothermal energy that you're working on. And I do believe this is a technology that is a game changer that we if we can perfect for Canada with our cold climate, it could be a game changer. Do you think there's a role in the federal government to encourage more people to follow into studies like yours? And is there, we know that financially they're not helping, but is there promotional ways that we can encourage more students to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think just bringing awareness to green technologies and I personally find that there can be a lot of stigma behind, for example, nuclear energy, that it may be bad for us, but in reality, it's actually very green and very efficient for our energy sector. So just bringing awareness to maybe the younger generations of what technologies are available out there for our energy sector, as well as how these future students can access a career path or a career path in academia.
Yeah, and it's encouraging that finally the government's not scared to say the word nuclear, and there's somewhat support for them in the last budget for the nuclear sector, which we're all encouraged because of the importance of nuclear to our efforts to leave a better environment for the next generation. So I commend you on your studies. Just on the percent of international students within your year, do you know roughly what percent would be international students?
I don't know an exact number. I would assume around 40%, but it could be less than that at this point.
And do they compete with some of the scholarships or bursaries that might be out there?
Depending on the additional scholarships, sometimes you do have to be a permanent resident or a citizen here in Canada in order to apply. In terms of funding from our school or from our direct supervisor, that's split, I assume, equally with international and domestic students.
And just briefly on how things have been going the last number of years. We know costs are up. It sounds like you've been a student for a number of years. Think back to your first year to this year. What is the major categories that are costing you more? Is it tuition? Is it living? Is it what has happened to your rents? Would be a good.
Well, it's kind of
About
tricky.
20 seconds.
Okay. In 2018, when I started my grad school studies, I was paying rent, so it was around $600 a month. Whereas now I do have a partner that I am financially dependent on. So without that, without my partner to support and like pay my rent or pay our mortgage, anything like that, my renting would be significantly higher now compared to 2018. I would assume within that range. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you again for the study, the work that you're doing, and the research. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. And now we'll turn over to Lena Metledge-Diab for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Chantal, for coming this morning. I just want to commence by saying congratulations. Master's, PhD, mechanical engineering. I know a lot of sweat and tears and hard work, and a lot has gone into that. So congratulations. If I have time, I might ask you a little bit to tell us a little bit more in terms of what you did. But let me just ask. We have heard, and we do appreciate the fact that funding has to change and has to increase for both the graduate scholarships as well as for the postdoc fellowships. So, because we've heard a lot from the research community that is definitely needed. In your opinion, would we be looking at graduate scholarships? I guess what ways do you think increased funding that the federal government can help support? Do you have any recommendations based on your experience, either personally or what others around you have said?
Do you mean in terms of funding amounts, or
not specifically amounts, but sources, graduates, fellowship, bursaries? That I know there's different methods.
I would say,
and some come from directly from universities, some come from professors, supervisors, some come from the NSERCs. So, yeah.
I would say just in general, like increasing the funding would be very helpful. One example of how funding could be increased is through providing, funding to the universities for TA-ships. So it's a way that we still could work for the funding. So providing the universities with an additional help for like undergraduate classes as a TA, but then we are still getting that supplementary funding in order to help us with our lives and well-being.
So we've heard some testimony from different witnesses, because we've been doing this for a number of times, that talked about the balance, and I don't think anybody seems to realize the balance, or there's a shift between the number of scholarships or fellowship that are out there, whether we should be concentrating on giving more students or less students, but increasing funding for the students that are there, or do you have any opinion on that?
In terms of using like the same amount and splitting it to cover more students, I would say I personally like the idea of having the same number with the higher value of scholarships because it makes these scholarships very competitive. However, I do see the advantage of taking that same value and splitting it across multiple individuals, but then that small number being awarded to those individuals is still very small with added to our to our current financing. So the biggest thing I would just stress is look at in 2003 when these scholarships were created, how was that compared to the current cost of living then, and how would that translate to now, and what value would that have to be now in order to be comparable?
Yes, and I think government is undertaking to hopefully look into that, along with other reports that we have seen and have come before us, including the Bouchard report and so on. You talked about research and innovation, and particularly in your sector. From what you've seen as a student or from others, is there a way to tap into businesses or corporate or have you seen that happening, in your milieu, that other sources of funding for students and people that are doing these fantastic research, whether in your field or other fields, I guess?
Yeah, so partnership between research groups and industry is very useful. Those industry partners can then provide their time as a way to talk with grad students, and that's sort of like intellectual funding, I guess. Other options are sometimes industry partners can fund grad students to attend school and help pay for their cost of school and cost of living while still being an employee or taking a break from being an employee and then moving on to grad school.
Speak to us a little bit about your journey and what it is that you've done in your research.
I guess, yeah, so my journey, I study borehole thermal energy storage. So what I focus on is taking excess heat from things like air conditioners or buildings such as an ice rink in the summer that requires a lot of cooling demand. It's actually exhausting a lot of thermal energy into the atmosphere. So what my job is as a grad student is to study how we can store that heat in the ground, in the soil, in order to then, in a few months, like later in the winter when we have a high heating demand, we can pull that heat out and use that heat to supplement the heating demand, or to help match the heating demand that we have in the winter.
Great, thank you.
Sorry.
You did very well in about 30 seconds to describe something very complex. I appreciate that. Thank you for the questions. And over to you, Monsieur Blanchet-Jolka, for 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the witness being here. I've paid very close attention to your presentation. It's a topic that I've lived as a student myself, the stress, the financial problems to continue studies because, and also mental health. There was a study by the Quebec Students' Union that said that the number of university students having stress levels was 56% psychological stress, and this is a factor that's added to financial stress. There was a study during the pandemic, still by the Quebec Students Association, where 80% of university students had high levels of stress. And I'd like to hear your ideas about stress. What was the effect of stress on your mental health during your studies?
Thank you. Yeah, you've done great research in your question there. And from my personal experience, as I mentioned in my statement, we do have stress as grad students, and that's okay. We signed up for the study and for grad studies, but when it's added stress from things like housing or cost of food, that's when it becomes a negative impact on our lives. For me personally, I know that there are mental health resources available at our schools, so we can be connected with counselors if we do feel like the level of stress is overwhelming. However, I do want to point out that sometimes those counseling sessions are only held virtually or on the phone, so they're not as personal as it would be if you were able to attend a counseling session in person. And you just get matched by a system's, just the need, supply and demand, basically. So you don't get a personal connection with your counselor, which also can be beneficial when you require counseling. So things like having to go to a exterior or like needing to actually put your own funding towards counseling can be difficult when you don't have adequate funding from our scholarships.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. So, you know that the federal government said that it's investing a great deal of money to fight against mental health problems, and there's this problem that often this lack of funding, though, financial stress can also add to mental stress. So how can you reconcile these two things?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Donc,
So the government's investing in help for students who have mental health problems, but by not increasing structural funding for students, that itself creates mental health problems. And I'd like to know your personal point of view as someone who's lived it. What do you see? Is it really a coherent policy? There's a not acting to increase funding creates mental health, and that makes the government have to intervene to support the mental health problems caused by the lack of funding.
Yeah, if I understood correctly, it is kind of a catch-22 situation where the lack of funding to us as grad students will cause us to, or is one of the causes of us requiring more mental health funding, and then the government then has to help supplement it there. So I would just say increasing funding could have a potential impact of decreasing the need for mental health support if it were increased in the future.
merci beaucoup. Évidemment, je
Thank you very much. Of course, I agree with you. And so we should attack problems at the source to avoid mental health problems, because that can leave long-term effects on students who have had to live through it. And in 2003, it was barely $7 was the minimum wage, and now it's doubled to 15 or more. And I'm sure you've seen that your funding, however, hasn't really increased for students. And so I think there would have to be a 48% increase in funding for fellowships and bursaries. And today we're asking students to take the same amount that they had in 2003 and live on that sum. How do you think? Do you think that's possible to continue to pay your costs, transportation, housing? And I'm not talking about just a bit of spending money. How does that affect your quality of life?
Yeah, the funding amounts have not increased since 2003, and I think that because of this, I don't think it is possible without additional funding, whether that be parents or a partner or taking out loans in order to have a decent quality of life as a grad student. So I do find that the funding just needs to be increased for these students in order to have, sorry, am I done? Yeah, sorry.
I think that was the thought that we were looking for. We're good for that. I think we'll go to the next 6 minutes with Richard Cannings, and then we will suspend for a very brief time. You can see our next witness is online. We've got the technical issues sorted and get her testimony, and then a round of questioning after the second round of questioning after that. So, Mr. Cannings, over to you for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being here, Ms. Miller. We were talking here broadly in this study about the situation where graduate student scholarships and fellowships have remained the same for the last 20 years, and how ridiculous that is on many levels. But what is often forgotten as well is that the overall government investments in universities, the government's funding for universities, both at the federal and provincial level, has declined and or remained stagnant, depending on which set of years you're looking at, for the past 30 years. So they're just the overall investment we're making in student studies and, our future for innovation and all the kind of things that you're doing has declined. And of course, when you decrease funding for universities, they have to find that money somewhere, and they get it from students. And that's why tuition has gone up so much. And when I was a student, tuition was something like $400 a year. And I just wanted to ask you what your tuition is right now, just to put that in perspective.
Yeah. For me, my tuition's around $7,000 a year. When taking courses for a PhD or a master's, that tuition value can range up to around $11,000 a year.
Right. And the PhD scholarships that we provide, to our best and brightest, these are scholarships. They're given out to people who qualify, the best. We're giving them $21,000 a year for everything. And I think a lot of people think, wow, that'll be hard to live on. It's hard to live on $30,000 a year in a job. But when you take $7,000 or $11,000 off that, you're looking at $10,000. And how impossible that is. And I'm just want to let you comment on that and how you and others cope.
Yeah. It is a small amount of money to live off of. For me personally, I know after I was living in Hamilton and paying rent during my master's, but then I did have to move back home to move in with my parents in order to save some money instead of paying rent to a landlord. I got to stay at my parents' house for free. So that takes a little bit of independence away from grad students, which can affect your mental health. But I'm fortunate enough to have great parents, loved living with them. But for those who don't have the ability to move in with a significant other or a shared accommodation or parents or guardians, they may be forced to still spend that money and go into debt while in grad school.
Yeah, and you mentioned how we're essentially filtering out students who can't do that. They end up taking a year or two out if they do eventually go back to studies, just to make enough money to get through those years. So we're filtering out those students who can't manage that. And, education is supposed to be the great equalizer, and yet we're depriving students from low-income backgrounds that ability.
Yeah. Canada could be missing out on extraordinary individuals who perhaps they can't afford to attend grad school, and so they need to go into industry in order to make money. So Canada could be missing out on those opportunities to have those individuals as grad students.
And, we've heard that, these scholarships and fellowships only help maybe a third of the students out there. The rest are being funded by their supervisors through other grant programs. I'm just wondering if you have any idea of how much those students are receiving on an annual basis.
That I'm not exactly sure as exact numbers. It can range. Your funding can come from your supervisor or your department of your school. So those numbers I would assume to be under 10 grand. Yeah.
So what we've been hearing from some witnesses is that these scholarship and fellowship funding amounts kind of set the levels for other, whether it's the university or the investigator who are paying their grad students as well. And how much? 45 seconds. Okay. And I just wanted to, we had a question about whether we should be funding as many students as possible or giving a smaller number the amount they need to live a proper life. I mean, couldn't we do both? We've had the Bouchard report that's saying we should increase both the number of these scholarships and the amounts. We should increase the number of grants to investigators. Can't we do both, and shouldn't we be doing as much as possible?
I think doing as much as possible and funding for both would be the best option.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll suspend for a very brief sound check, and then we'll get into Ms. Meraldaran's presentation. And we'll start with a presentation from the Canadian Association of Doctoral Scholars from Ms. Meraldaran, a postdoctoral fellow. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you to the members of the committee for the invitation. I respectfully acknowledge that I'm speaking from the unceded territories, including Semi-Mu, Katsi, Kwikitlim, Kwantlen, Kakate, and Twasan nations. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in Burnaby at Simon Fraser University, and I'm the chair of the Canadian Association of the Postdoctoral Scholars, which is CAPS or ACPP. At CAPS ACPP, it is a nonprofit professional association that advocates on behalf of the Canadian postdoctoral scholars for a wide range of career paths. The mandate of CAPS ACPP is to improve the lives, training, and work experience of all the Canadian postdocs. CAPS strongly believes in the value of advocacy work for Canadian postdocs, and we believe that a strong profession requires an effective regulator as well as an active professional association. So who are postdocs? Like, I am a postdoc, so who am I? I completed my PhD, my doctoral studies in Australia, and then I went ahead for my first postdoctoral research in the US, and then I moved on to Canada. So we are individuals who continue to stay in the academic field to enhance our skill set following our doctoral degree. We are mostly very highly qualified, and there's about 10,000 of us across Canada. And we are working in about 60 institutions, which was, confirmed in one of the reports by CAPS in 2018. The number of, based on our survey, our recent National Postdoctoral Survey in 2020, we had responses from over about 1,000 postdocs, of which majority of them were current postdocs at that point of time, and then the rest of them were former postdocs. The survey showed that majority of the respondents, about 88.5% of them, were postdocs who worked in institutions in Canada, whereas the remaining worked abroad. We had higher number of respondents, such as like 35%-ish from Ontario, followed by Alberta, BC, and Quebec. So there are some, interesting findings or numbers that we could point out from our survey. We found that majority of them, majority of the postdoc respondents, where they belong to the field of life science. The second highest was engineering, and lastly, humanities. As we discussed, or like as we heard in some of the earlier conversations, the major source of funding for majority of the postdocs is a supervisor's grant. So that's about 50% of them. Followed by NSERC fellowship, which is around 10%, CIHR or SSHRC fellowships less than 5%, my tax fellowships of about like 5 to 8%. Most of our postdocs, they are of an average age of 33 years. About 62% of the postdocs are married, and almost equal number of male and female postdocs in the field. The median hours of work for us is almost about 45 hours, and the salary in Canada for majority of them, the median salary is 51,000 odd. And there's about 25% of the postdocs who earn much less than or less than 45K. Currently, the Tri-Council funding fellowships are valued at 40,000 plus a 5,000 research allowance for 3 years. The value of the awards should be increased by 48% to address the inflation, since we have not had any changes for past 20 years. So hopefully the new projected value could be like 60,000. So why do we need support? The current funding is unsustainable. Postdocs and grad students are key players of the research team in all the research labs and the universities. We are a great support for the Canadian research and innovation, but the amount of funding and the number of fellowships is not enough to support our careers. This is why we need increased support from the federal government. For it does not just mean increased funding, would also mean increased value for the funds, and also increase in the number of funding or fellowships offered to postdocs. A lot of postdocs find it difficult to carry on their normal life as the current salaries affect their lifestyle. There's a lot of brain drain that's happening because many postdocs have left Canada as they could not afford to live or work here. If we want a future Canadian research to be internationally competitive, then we need to pay them enough to match the other G7 countries. There should be more investments made on academia and industrial partnerships as well. And there's also another key item that is commonly in talk recently is postdocs do not have enough health benefits. Especially when they get an external award all throughout most of the major Canadian universities. So
Okay,
that is something.
We'll have to cut you off there. I'm sorry, but we are on a very tight schedule. We're going to have to actually trim the question time to 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes, and 2 minutes in order to arrive on time. Thank you for your testimony, and maybe the rest of your testimony can be worked into the question round, which we'll start off with Mr. Lobb for 4 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and to Chantal, welcome to the committee here. I'm wondering, is part of your job when do you receive benefits like health benefits and so forth? So you'd be under the McMaster University benefit program?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so that's good. In the department or the program, the graduate study program, do you get a chance to meet with the administration that take care of the program, or is it just basically computer interaction?
No, I know some of the administrative staff. I know like where their room is in the engineering building for the mechanical engineering department.
So when you find out that you're going to be receiving a financial grant for your research, is there a process where you're involved, or is it just basically, here's your cash, go to your study?
It is an email that's sent out just to give an overview of the dates and the amounts that will be sent to us, and yeah.
Like I would think, because the area that you described would be an area of interest to many large corporations and even small venture cap corporations. TC Energy, Enbridge, the list goes on in Canadian companies. Do they have regular meetings with folks like you to say, hey, we would love to help fund some of your research so that you will come work for us when you're done your graduate studies and we'll pay you a big salary? Does that ever happen?
So for my particular research group, there are industry partners that are on the project. In terms of funding amounts, that would go to the research group itself rather than to the grad students. So it would go to the research group, and then the supervisor our supervisor would then kind of allocate those funds, whether it's to be used in the actual laboratory for equipment, or if some of it goes to grad students for funding. I do know that there are examples where these companies will pay a grad student or one of their employees to then enter grad school, so they do get funding from that company as well as from grad studies.
One thing, just to sum up, I think we've heard this enough by now. And certainly, you've made a good description. There's too many gatekeepers at these universities. Like, if Fortis wants to pay $40,000 a year plus the university grant to get you to $60,000 or $70,000, you should just get it direct. There doesn't need to be a supervisor and a gatekeeper skimming 50% off just to tell you that you can do your research.
Yeah.
So,
I think streamlining some of the funding would be useful.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you finished, Mr. Law, that's a good break point. And thank you for being succinct on your questioning. And over to Mr. Collins for 4 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the witnesses for their attendance this morning. I'll start with Ms. Muriel Iteron. Can I ask, we had Support Our Science group here in front of us a couple of times. I think they've had 2 representatives, and they've given very specific recommendations as it relates to increasing the value of graduate scholarships by 50% and index them to inflation, increase the number of grad scholarships by 50%, increase postdoctoral fellowships by 100%. And so they're very specific recommendations. You talked about the need for, along the same lines and themes that they presented, you talked about the need for increased support. Do you have specific recommendations as it relates to what those numbers should look like and what level of support that should look like as it relates to government support?
Sure, because at the moment our federal funding or fellowships are just valued at like $40K, which is very less for someone, a postdoc, who is in an expensive city like me in Vancouver. We cannot make our living with just $45K. And, it should at least start with a base value of $60K. That would be the recommendation. And hopefully it needs to be topped up more.
And in terms of the number of those recipients, have you given thought to that in terms of the level of support in that regard?
Yes. We definitely want it to be much higher. I can give you the number. It should be increased. I can just give me a minute. So we are indexing, or we are trying to say that we need at least 150 awards more, new awards per category, so that it would help a lot of postdocs.
Okay, thanks very much. Mr. Chair, if I could switch gears and ask Chantal a question. Chantal, you've raised a number of issues as it relates to affordability and inflation and the impact it has on those that are continuing their education and research in our country. And one of those areas is housing, and you're you're studying in Hamilton, and I know that McMaster is building a new facility in downtown Hamilton, $100 million. I think it's a 30-story building that will provide residences for 600 postgraduate students. Supports like that, if the government, there's common themes here. You've given recommendations in terms of increasing the level of support for graduate students, the value of the scholarships, the number of scholarships. We just heard that previous answer from the other witness. So those are very common themes. And one thing I've tried to ask witnesses through the study is, are there other areas that the government can provide support? Housing is one of those areas. And I point again to McMaster's investment downtown. Are there other areas where we can provide support to ease the burden of the costs that everyone has provided to the committee, to ensure that your studies, the research that you do, is an easier path to go down, knowing that there are other supports beyond just the scholarships and fellowships and the grant values that have been referenced and have been a common theme at the committee. And I've got about 30 seconds left.
Specifically for grad student housing, I think that making the housing competitive at market value is not good enough. I think that it should be competitive at the value that the students are getting paid, because even if it's good towards the market, students still can't afford something that is
So,
as
so
expensive
a
as
level of subsidy that would assist students and separate those rents from market rent. So, could be 80%, 60%. You're saying there needs to be a subsidy with that housing support.
Yeah, just making it affordable.
Thank you.
Thank you. And 2 minutes for Monsieur Blanchet-Chocat, please.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. Welcome to the witness, Ms. Moale-Daran. During the last meeting, we heard Mr. Johnson from who told us that 38%, according to a study, new doctor students go to other countries, for example, the United States. And what we also heard was that the federal government has only 2.5% increase only for 2.5% of students who receive a fellowship or a bursary, and it hasn't gone up in a number of years. And my question with regard to the advisory committee report requested by the government, there was a suggestion that there could be an increase in bursaries, a significant increase for students in order to meet what is available internationally, and how can we become more competitive for higher studies with regard to other countries?
I think that was directed to Ms. Miranda.
Can someone please translate it?
Okay, we've had a translation problem. Could we maybe get that in writing to you, and
Sure.
then you can
Sure.
respond? That's not...
Yep, definitely. Sure.
Est-ce que c'est possible que vérifier?
Can we check with the witness to know if she's been able to click on the interpretation button?
Yeah, whether she selected the English on her Zoom?
I did.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
There's a button at the bottom that's shaped like a globe, and she should be able
Yeah, there's a globe on the bottom of your screen, and with that globe, you should be able to choose English.
Perfect. I did that.
Okay, so can Monsieur...
Could you repeat your question, Monsieur Blanchet-Chocat?
Si, monsieur, c'est possible.
Yes. Can I also have my time as well?
Seconds.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, I've lost all my time because of the problem with the interpretation. I was watching the clock as you were talking. So you're giving me only 20 seconds for the 2 minutes that I was supposed to have? And the witness, because of the technical problem, couldn't heard the question. Could you repeat your question? Do you understand my question? Could I get my time back? Thank you. So, Chair, the question for Ms. Moale-Daran, last year, the advisory committee on the system, the federal system, with regard to assistance, there was the Bouchard report, and one of the recommendations was that the committee also calls on the government to considerably increase funding for students, postdoctoral students, and higher studies to compete with the international community. Do you think this is a good idea? And what would be a competitive rate of subsidy and a bursary for postdoctoral fellowships?
Sure. Thank you for your question. So Yes, we need to increase the value and the number of fellowships that's been, provided for the postdoctoral scholars. So we are aiming that there should be an increase of at least about 60,000. That is where it should start off with. That's the base value, and definitely there's a lot of room for it to be improved. And definitely we request to about 150 new awards, because we have issues such as postdocs getting these external funding actually get considered by majority of the Canadian universities as not employees of the university in the university where they're considered as employees. So that causes a lot of problems. So this is another thing to be thought of when we have new fellowships being coined. We definitely need to budget in for the benefits for the postdocs.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. And Mr. Cannings, for 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Morelli-Duran, and I'd like to direct my question to you and the whole question around postdocs. I think you painted an interesting picture of the situation postdocs are in. I think if you talk to a high school graduate and said, you're a really smart student, you've got the world ahead of you, you should go and get your bachelor's degree, your master's, your PhD, and get into academics, get into some great jobs in industry, deal with, help Canada with innovation. And by the time you're 33 years old, when most young people are starting families, you'll be working 45 hours a week for a $40,000 a year salary. I don't know how many people would say, wow, yeah, I should do that. And I'm just wondering, you talked about how you have come from country to country, end up in Canada, you chose Canada. How does Canada look to other postdocs who are looking around the world when we have funding for these programs at such a low level?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Richard. I can definitely answer that question based on my personal experience as well, because I did my PhD or grad school in Australia. And the system there is, you have a very clear system where you have a table for your salary of whatever education you have. And your salary is always matched to the current inflation level every year. So I really wanted to get a lot of experience, and that's why I moved different countries, and I really wanted to come to Canada to improve my research skill set. And when you look, when postdocs outside of Canada look up to Canada for coming for their postdocing career, I feel at the moment there has been a bit of a sad news for them, because when you see such low fellowships pay scale provided by the universities or by the federal funding agencies, it really disappoints them, because either they think that...
I'm sorry, we have gone over time. I was wanting to get as much of your thought in as we could, so thank you for that. Sure. Thank you for the witnesses for joining us. We will... And thank you to Chantal Miller and Priya Mohandaran for your testimonies and participation in relation to this study of the Government of Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs. If there is any information that you'd like to submit, please do in writing and get that to the clerk. We will be suspending, but for the members that are online, if you could stay online so that we can start getting ready for our second round. We have 4 witnesses in the next panel, with 2 of them that will be online, so we'll get them teed up quickly, and we'll come back soon. Thank you. busy 55 minutes ahead of us. Pursuant to Standing Order 10831 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, the committee resumes its study of the Government of Canada's graduate scholarship and postdoctoral fellowship programs. It's now my pleasure to welcome Seman Sadeghi, Assistant Professor of Chemistry and Chemical Biology via video conference as an individual. We have John Hepburn, Chief Executive Officer of MyTax, also here virtually. And in the room so far, we have Dr. Hranilovic from McMaster University, Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Studies. I think we'll start off with Mr. Sadeghi from as an individual. The floor is yours if you want to go off mute. And we have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to address the committee. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at McMaster University, and I also hold an adjunct faculty membership at UCLA in the US. About 20 years ago, while doing my PhD at U of D, I was one of the recipients of the NSERC PGSD scholarship, which at the time actually made a big difference in my standard of living. I think by now you've heard from multiple sources that despite significant increases in cost of living across cities in Canada, the monetary value of scholarships like the NSERC PGSD really hasn't changed since then, since I received the scholarship 20 years ago. Now, going beyond scholarships, I think increasing minimum graduate stipends is essential to ensure that lower income students can afford the current cost of living. This is particularly true in bigger cities and enable students to pursue advanced education. Now, while each institution should really adjust graduate and postdoc stipends based on the local living wage salary, a much needed across-the-board increase in minimum stipends will foster equal opportunities and diversity in academia, federal support for stipends that are in line with a living wage salary and better childcare reimbursement will help our universities stay competitive with leading research institutions in the US and industry to retain talent in Canada. To provide some specific examples, the graduate program that I participate in at UCLA has a $40K USD stipend for 2023, and this is proposed to increase to about $42.5 in 2024. Removing financial barriers is also important, making graduate school accessible to a broader range of students, promoting inclusivity and preventing graduate education from being limited to just those students with greater financial means.
Thank you.
I'll stop there.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we have joining us Dr. David Navog from McMaster University, a professor in the Department of Engineering Physics, for 5 minutes, please, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and I apologize for arriving late. My flight was delayed. It's my pleasure to address this distinguished committee and provide my personal insights on the issue of graduate student scholarship and postdoctoral fellow funding. I obtained my PhD in a kind of a non-standard route where the bulk of my work was complete. I spent a year in Japan towards the end and another year at Ontario Hydro. Before moving to McMaster, I worked in the series of utilities in the nuclear industry, and I've been a professor in engineering for 17 years, specializing in nuclear energy and safety. During this period, I've graduated or supervised a total of 23 PhD students, 32 master's students, and 9 postdoctoral fellows. It's not the number of which I'm proud. It's the large impact these students have in industry, in research, and beyond. It's the joy of my career. I strive to ensure that my current students have the same access to mobility funding and advanced training that I did years ago. And I would like to discuss some of those specific challenges today. Firstly, a typical engineering graduate student receives a funding that is a mix of university or provincial funding, teaching assistant income, and scholarship provided by the supervising faculty. Supplemental student-specific funding may be awarded from federal agencies such as NSERC or the private sector. In my experience, some students have had access to funds in excess of $55,000 per year at the PhD level, or as little as $20,000 to $25,000. This low-end salary corresponds to an excellent student living below the poverty line. And this is true in many jurisdictions.
While some diversity of funding is expected and exceptional talent should be rewarded, this level of discrepancy needs further examination. A system that had the flexibility to expand the number of students accessing funding in this lower income category would do a lot towards maintaining graduate scholarship in Canada. Second, there's also a need to address the diversity of students at this level. Not all had the privileges and opportunities I encountered in my studies. There is a need to ensure proper support for those with partners, children, dependents, cohabitating family members, and also to ensure funding for those who have challenges related to their mobility or learning. So additional funding supplements for students in these categories should be considered. Finally, in building upon these previous topics, in many scientific and engineering disciplines, we are experiencing an issue in attracting top talent to stay for these advanced degrees. While I receive many applications per week, not all are qualified, and most are not from Canadian universities. Total stipends and an attractive labor market limit the applications we get from Canadian students to very few. Certainly a more sustainable and equitable scholarship program accessible by a larger cohort would have some impact there. However, one unique aspect I'd like to address is perhaps consideration of an international exchange program beyond what is currently available. For example, my program receives many more international research exchange students at the graduate level from France than we send there. This is simply because there's an established and easily accessible federal and local funding in France for students in advanced degrees to have mobility elsewhere in the world. Such a system would attract students with global research interests and provide additional incentive for them to attend graduate studies. In conclusion, our goal should be to build an accessible and flexible funding system that can accommodate the diversity in student backgrounds, the increased value of international mobility, and increased economic pressures from tuition and cost of living. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak, and again, I apologize for my lateness today.
Well, thank you, and a little bit of stress getting here, but we're glad that you were able to make it. Thank you. And now we'll move to John Hepburn, the CEO of MyTax. John Hepburn, for 5 minutes, please.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to address this important topic. My remarks are going to take us in a slightly different direction, but consistent with the two previous witnesses and others. So I am John Hepburn. I'm the CEO of MyTax. We're a large national not-for-profit supported by the federal government and all 10 provinces and industry. Our mission is to strengthen innovation in Canada, both social and industrial, and we do this through talent. In the past, I was a university professor of chemistry and physics, actually, both at University of Waterloo and University of British Columbia for more than 3 decades. I was a dean of science and a vice president at UBC, so I'm very aware of the pressures on graduate students and research in Canada. My current role, I work with universities. We work with universities and colleges across Canada and internationally. We have international programs, as everything we do revolves around students and postdocs. Briefly put, we foster and support partnerships between post-secondary institutions and industry, social enterprises, municipalities, and hospitals. Partnerships are generally applied research projects where the research is carried out by students and postdoctoral fellows who divide their time between the university and the non-academic partner. The research project is part of the student's academic research work, thesis in the case of most of the students, graduate students, but it's defined by the non-academic partner's needs as they pay half the cost. That's the industry support that we get. Students and postdocs are paid, of course, and our rate of pay is typically much higher than a typical Tri-Council scholarship, but below the industrial rate, of course. We report our activities in terms of 4-month units of work, which we call internships or stages, and a student can do several of these in a row. Obviously, for a PhD student, that's necessary. Depends on the project. Last year, we funded 21,500 of these internships, benefiting about 7,000 students. So we're large. We have a very close relationship with our non-academic, typically industrial clients, and we hear constantly that appropriately trained talent is in short supply, especially in emerging fields such as quantum technology. This arises from a few challenges. In highly sought-after fields such as computer science or many engineering fields, the incentive to do graduate work is limited. Why work for less than minimum wage for 5 years to get a PhD when you can earn a great salary right after your undergraduate degree? If you do the hard work of getting a master's or doctoral degree, demand for PhDs in Canada is low. because of our frankly woeful industrial innovation. We have one of the worst records in the OECD. Of course, innovative American firms recognize the value of Canadian talent, and they're very willing to pay much higher salaries than Canadian firms. The end result is that while Canada has a very high participation rate in post-secondary education, a pretty good participation rate in universities, our production of doctoral degrees is well below that of other rich countries, especially in high-demand fields. While some of these issues are not being investigated at this meeting, it is worth noting that Canada cannot improve innovation, be it industrial or healthcare. If we cannot improve innovation, our future prosperity is in peril. As I understand it, you're investigating the impact of inadequate funding of graduate students and postdoctoral fellows, a critical issue, but only part of a larger problem in Canada, as I've already mentioned. In most fields, graduate students and postdocs are the driving force of the research enterprise. When I was an academic scientist, I supervised very many students and postdocs, and the bulk of my research output, virtually all of it, was due to their hard work. It is hard work more than full-time. If the best students can do their work at an American university, and we've already heard this, and get a stipend that is much higher than what they'll get in Canada, why would they stay in Canada? And once they go south of the border, they may not come back. In most engineering fields, especially electrical and computer engineering, often the majority of PhD students are international students, sometimes the vast majority. Not a bad thing, but it does reflect on the attractiveness of graduate work for students, Canadian students and permanent residents who have other choices. If this supply of foreign graduate students was to dry up, we'd be in even worse shape than we are now. Of course, the very best foreign students, such as Indian Institute of Technology graduates, never come to Canada. That's largely because of our low stipends. Finally, I must address the quality of graduate education. While universities in Canada provide excellent research training for graduate students and postdocs, there's a need to do a better job of incorporating non-academic training into their studies, given that the majority of graduates at the PhD level will find jobs outside of the academy. It is not the job of universities to provide this professional training, but they do not have the expertise to provide it. Stronger participation with non-academic partners is needed, as they can help with providing students with a decent wage while they study. The students from such training partnerships will gain excellent research training that the universities provide and do provide right now, plus the professional training best provided outside the universities. This is not to imply, absolutely not to imply, that better government support of graduate students is not necessary. But the support can be provided through many channels: improved scholarships, increased research funding, which is critical for most students, and better support for partnership training. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hepburn, for your testimony. And now over to Dr. Steve Hranilovich from McMaster University. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name.
Thank you,
for
Chair.
5 minutes, please.
I appreciate the effort. Thank you. And I also appreciate being given the opportunity on behalf of McMaster University to present today and offer a broader institutional perspective of the university. I'm pleased to be joined by some of my faculty colleagues here today, and especially by a grad student that you've heard in the last panel, Chantal Miller, who have all brought their unique and individual perspectives to the discussion. Graduate student funding is a challenge for McMaster and its students, along with universities across the higher educational sector. At the outset, I'd like to underscore that McMaster shares the views of the organizations that I've presented to you already, particularly the Canadian Association for Graduate Studies, whose president made important points about additional funding being needed for federal research granting agencies and increases to graduate student and postdoctoral scholarships. I'd like to especially underscore the importance of the government's advisory panel on federal research support system and a disappointing manner in which its key recommendations have not been acted on to date, but we remain hopeful. In terms of how the current environment is impacting McMaster and how we as an institution are managing these challenges, the response is multi-layered, and I will provide a brief introduction and welcome further questions that the committee may have. In February of this year, McMaster struck a task force specific to graduate funding, which is presently hosting campus-wide consultations on the impact of the current funding environment and ways in which the institution can help manage those challenges. Thus far, those consultations have yielded some key themes, including financial hardship, which is no surprise given today's inflationary environment, challenges with availability of information, additional barriers faced particularly by international students, and challenges raised to provincially imposed PhD timelines. On the point of the province and its requirements, it also bears mentioning that McMaster, as an Ontario-based university, is also having to manage the unique landscape of how our provincial government is administering its post-secondary system, which is adding to the already substantial challenge of federal funding. For example, and as the committee no doubt has heard before, tuition rates in Ontario were rolled back by 10% in 2019 and have been frozen since. Coupled with the freezing of our provincial operating grants since 2016 and federal grants for master's and PhD students not having increased since 2003, one starts to see a very depressing picture for the state of post-secondary funding in Canada. To this, it bears highlighting that there has been for some time a disconnect between government priorities and the fiscal realities faced by institutions. For example, in terms of global competitiveness, Ontario universities' offers are insufficient to attract top talent. Top U.S. schools will often waive tuition for excellent graduate students, while European universities can typically charge no tuition at all. Adding to this, that our national economic strategy relies so heavily on new Canadians to fuel continued growth, one can appreciate the mismatch. From the consultations McMaster has had with its community to date, it is clear some actions can be taken at the institutional level to help manage the current state of affairs. First, we can remove limitations for students that want and need more on-campus employment. We can increase awareness of emergency bursary funds to help ensure that our communications we can increase awareness of emergency bursary funds to help ensure that our communications, for example, and offers of letter, help students better understand what funding options are and resources are available. We can also look to specific faculties to close the timing gaps to better meet provincial requirements. But I want to emphasize that these measures are stopgap measures at best, and frankly, ways which our institution is only managing a situation which is having a profoundly negative impact on post-secondary research across Canada. I'll pause now and would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions from the committee on any points that we've raised or any other points of interest. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And McMaster certainly has been well represented in this study. Looking at the time, and because we've had some suspensions in the first round, we'll go through two rounds, four of 6 minutes, and then 5, 2.5, 2.5. It'll take us up to about 10 after 1, just to let the committee know that's the plan. And first of all, we'll go over to Mr. Tucker for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're going to carry on with McMaster, and I'd like to thank both of you guys for being here. To Steve, you talked about the inflationary crisis that we're in right now, and regardless of the funding that you're receiving, what we've heard from many institutions that inflation in many different ways have impacted your ability to provide high-quality education. Can you unpack some of the ways that inflation has challenged you, probably in your budget in your college?
Thank you. So I want to set the stage that Ontario, my context is in Ontario universities. Ontario universities are facing unique pressures. There's one institution in Ontario that has gone bankrupt, others that are facing structural deficits. I'm happy to say McMaster is not one of those. We have a balanced budget. And we are not immune as an institution to inflation. However, our graduate students are particularly susceptible to inflation given the precarious nature of housing and of financial support that they have. You heard from Chantal and some of our students that are fortunate enough to have local safety nets or local structures for support in Canada, and they can rely on them. I also want to reference that we have international students and students that travel from other parts of Canada that do not have local safety nets and that are drastically impacted by the level of funding that we as an institution can support whilst maintaining financial stewardship to ensure that we are a sustainable institution. And so, you know, the pressures that our students face are not unique. You have certainly heard them here. They center around housing, as many constituencies across our nation are facing. They center around precarity of work. Graduate students are not employed at the university. They are students at our institution, but they often need to work. And so the issue of balancing research, which they're passionate about, which is the reason they've come to earn that credential, balancing that with the need to work inside the university, outside of the university to sustain themselves, is a pressure that they're facing now more than ever because of inflation, because of our economic situation.
On the housing side, nationally it's doubled, either rents or mortgage payments. For McMaster, that region, has it more than doubled?
Yeah, so Hamilton is not immune to the price of housing increase. I can tell you that McMaster has been proactive. We've been lucky to have started construction of a graduate student residence near our campus. It's a 644-bed residence. Not to say that it is inexpensive. It is below market rates, but market rates have increased as well. So the lack of housing that is affordable and high quality. So I want to emphasize that as well. Some of our graduate students are living in precarious housing situations, which is not ideal. We work as an institution to ensure those emergency bursaries and supports are available. However, the need certainly outstrips the supply.
Thank you very much for that. Moving to online to Mr. Hepburn about, I understand you have facilities in Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. Are there any plans to have a regional hub in the prairies by chance?
Actually, those are, of course, we're all working remotely, so offices have become irrelevant. We have people from coast to coast. We have business development advisors, 110 of them, from St. John's to Victoria. We have actually about 25 people who work from Alberta, either Calgary or Edmonton. So we don't have formal offices there. We're saving taxpayers' dollars by not paying rent. A lot of our advisors and people work out of university offices that are given to us. So yes, we have a presence across the country. So the offices are just the ones we pay rent for.
Thank you. And staying online, I'm going to butcher the professor's name, last name, and correct me when you have the floor, but it's Sadiq, yeah? That is. You talked about the standard of living of students and how it's been negatively impacted. Have you seen a change in standard of living in the last 8 years with your students?
Absolutely. It's Sadeti, by the way, and I do appreciate the effort in pronunciation. I have to admit I've been back in Canada for the last about 3 years or so. I was in California for about 10 years before coming back, and glad to be back home. It has changed. I have been in touch with students over the past few years, and significantly, I would say that it has, because as has been pointed out by all the witnesses here, inflation and cost of living has more than doubled over the last 10 years, while graduate scholarships and stipends haven't. Now, we are supported by MyTax. I do want to acknowledge and appreciate that actually does make a huge difference in the standard of living for our students. And it's a huge attractive factor for bringing students into our universities and retaining talent in Canada. So that's appreciated. Programs like that are important. And I also do want to emphasize that we don't necessarily need to compete with industrial salaries. They're inevitably going to be higher all the time. Graduate students and postdocs are trainees at the end of the day. They're passionate about the research. They're sacrificing their time and effort or ability to make more money in industry to pursue their further education. What we do need to do, though, is to provide a minimum stipend so that they don't fall below the poverty line, which is unfortunately somewhat the case for many of our trainees at the moment.
Thank you much. I got one last question that I'll ask for a written response to David. Thank you again for being on the committee. Thank you for the testimony for the SMRs. Of the students that you outlined, the PhDs and master students, could you return to the committee in written form? How many of those students are working in their field in Canada? I'm assuming there would be mostly in nuclear.
All but 3 are working in the nuclear field in Canada. And those 3 are actually in artificial intelligence, and they got much higher jobs working for banks.
Okay. Thank you for getting the question answered quickly. If there is further detail you can provide in writing. Now we'll go over to Valerie Bradford from the Liberals for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us and providing your expert testimony today in this very important study. So on June the 6th, we had the benefit of having testimony from Dr. Mona Nemmer, the Chief Science Advisor. So I would just like to build a little bit on her testimony and get your input on that. So again, I'm going to try and struggle with your name, Dr. Steve? Dr. Steve? Dr. Steve. Okay. So anyway, So I want to look at the area of diversity and inclusion because that comes up quite often on the various studies that we do. So how would low stipends for graduate students and postdoctoral fellows impact equity, diversity, and inclusion within the research community?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's an important one to address, and it links to Chantal, the student Chantal Miller's question appearance earlier. Those students that have a significant safety net will benefit, and we want to ensure that graduate studies remains universal, is merit-based, depends on the quality of the applicant. I also want to pivot a little bit to, we've talked a lot about science and engineering, though I am an engineer myself by training. I want to pivot to the humanities, the social sciences, business, the other faculties that we do have institutionally. They too do not benefit as much from industrial support, industrial research grants to enable students to enter. Again, that is a significant impediment to meeting our EDI objectives, indigenization of our curricula. These are all objectives that we do face. However, sufficient supports need to be made broadly for all graduate students. The STEM fields certainly would benefit from that, and their application, it can be clear, and their link to industry is clear. However, there are links to improving Canadian society and tackling large problems from the humanities and from other disciplines across our institution.
Yes. Are increasingly even more disadvantaged. I don't believe my tax has any involvement with the humanities, right?
Yes, we do.
Oh, do you? Okay.
20% of our projects are social science humanities based with social science humanities students.
That's great. Perhaps it's my manufacturing background and my familiarity with my tax through that I realized. So are there groups, getting back to you, that are disproportionately affected by low scholarship and fellowship amounts? So do you mean the humanities are, or?
Certainly, the complexion of funding varies across the university. As I mentioned, we have created a series of stopgaps in order to ensure that students can be funded. In the humanities, those funding sources are not nearly as heavily based on research funding. In fact, they're almost not based on research funding at all. They're based on local supplies and funds that we can provide. We do have bursaries and other supports for identified groups. However, international students remain a key constituency that are not supported. They cannot apply for Tri-Council funding. They suffer from recent visa processing difficulties, which has thrown them into limbo from arriving into Canada. They are unable to obtain housing because they cannot obtain a credit check or in Canada. And so this burden falls disproportionately on us as an institution to support these international students who often stay in Canada, as my colleague has said, and eventually many choose to take a path towards citizenship and contribute to our society for many, many years to come. And so I think that's a key constituent that we should support.
Yes, we encourage them and attract them, hoping they will stay. So, that's the important point. So what factors should be considered when determining the value of scholarships and fellowships for graduate students and postdoctoral students? You can both answer this if you'd like.
Sure. I think it's important to have a balanced approach that takes equity and inclusivity into it. I think I can give a personal story that will help shed light. And it hurts me a little bit to say it, one of my postdoctoral researchers told me 1 week before they were giving birth that they were going to have a child, because the culture that they came from was such that it was not something to be celebrated or something, and it was something to not bring forward. And I, through my own experience, it's taking a parental leave for every single one of my children, and there's 3 of them, that I think trying to culturally shift people so that they realize the opportunities in Canada, both have a balanced life and have some opportunity, and get a post-secondary or higher degree. Really, I think that part would help a lot with attracting those people to Canada and even Canadians to stay within the system, to realize that all the benefits that they would receive working and going through parenthood or other life changes are available to them as students as well. Sorry, Stephen.
That's excellent testimony. Thank you for personalizing that. Now, are there Tri-Council standards or university guidelines to inform a supervisor's and principal investigators' decisions regarding compensation of graduate students and postdoctoral fellows on their research team?
You have about 30 seconds.
So I can say, yes, there are institutional minimums. We do have a minimum for PhD support. We have equalized tuition, so international students pay the same tuition as domestic students at the PhD level, recognizing McMaster as a research-intensive institution. However, funds need to come from somewhere, and master students then, of course, international master students often pay disproportionately higher tuitions as a result. And so those are the types of trade-offs that we as an institution are making in our severely constrained fiscal environment in order to ensure we meet our research mandate while supporting our graduate students.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Monsieur Blanchet-Jocat for 6 minutes, and a reminder to those online, if you could select language of your choice using the globe, and if you need English, you can choose the English translation.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je salue les...
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for our witnesses in the second round. My first question for Mr. Hepburn, Canada is losing ground with regard to other countries. It's not there's no research, because there's no students, and it's also that Canada is the only country of the G7 to have lost researchers since 2016. And I wonder if you could give us all your experience if there are fewer researchers. Does that explain our drop in the ranking of G7 countries? And we see that Canada is behind in innovation. We've gone from 8th in 2011 to 17 in 2017. What can you tell us with regard to that?
Je peux répondre en français, mais...
I can answer in French, but I'll try and work in French and English. Like many researchers, I speak in franglais. Yes, we have a big problem in Canada. I think that one of the problems, one of several problems, is that, and I've already referred to the lack of high-level doctoral students, and that is a problem. That's more of an industrial problem because there aren't many jobs for researchers in Canada, and that's a problem with the business expenditures for research and development. So if we have no industry innovation, that means that there's no demand for research. And so we don't make much progress. And if you don't make any progress with regard to research, we lose innovation, and we lose industry participation, and we lose productivity and social benefit of these efforts. Thank you very much. So this gives us some idea, and I understand when you say that, of course, we need to invest more, and you talked about the private sector. I'd like to know, in your opinion, what can the government do to increase innovation?
Yep.
We work a great deal with the government of Quebec, and like in Quebec, we have to have a strategy for innovation, and we don't really have an innovation strategy in Canada. There are a number of programs for innovation, but there is no real coordination amongst these programs. That's the first thing. And then second thing is that we absolutely have to have programs to support real industrial innovation. For example, like IRAP, the IRAP program, and the new Canadian Enterprise Corporation, Innovation Corporation. That is one possibility, but the program for for supporting research in university is essential, but we have to make a great deal of effort to support cooperation between businesses or enterprises and universities.
Si on revient au sujet qui nous intéresse aujourd'hui.
If we come back to the subject for today, the increase in fellowships and grants haven't increased since 2003, more than 20 years now. And so Mr. Johnson, the president of Master came last time, and he said that 38% of doctoral students in Canada leave the country for studies and to go to other countries. So I know that you've already said that there's no work. There's no work for doctoral or doctorates in the industrial sector. How can we explain that these doctorates? So many leave the country. What can the government do to ensure that we retain these people in Canada? We are doing things that retain doctoral students in Canada if they do an internship. 60% are more likely to stay in Canada if they have an opportunity to do an internship. And so we have to have the possibility of making some connection between doctoral students and work opportunities in Canada. If we do that, there is much more chance that they will stay in Canada and not go south of the border, because there is a great deal of innovation, and the salaries are higher in the United States.
6 minutes to Mr. Kennings.
Well, thank you, and I'll start with Dr. Ranilovich, or something like that. I thought I'd try. You talked about just the overall kind of ecosystem that the universities are in right now, and it's a difficult one financially for everyone, it seems. And you mentioned tuition. When I worked at UBC, I would travel to research stations in far-flung places, and they seem to be always full of students from Europe who were on their summer break, and because they didn't need to pay tuition, they didn't need to work between semesters, and they were there volunteering. And, here we have, today we're talking about this situation where we aren't providing enough support for graduate students. And people, I think, forget, and I keep trying to remind everyone that on top of everything else they have to pay, food, housing, everything. They have to pay tuition, and now they're faced with a $20,000 stipend or something like that, and have to pay $10,000 in tuition. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on that. Why Canada hasn't gone the route of Europe and reduced tuition, and yet what we've done is over the last 30 years, we've reduced overall federal and provincial support for post-secondary education. And that's forced universities to increase tuition. And I know it's a big question, but where would you sit on that, and in terms of the best strategy for us to maintain and encourage students to stay here in Canada?
Thank you very much. So, to be clear, from an Ontario context, we have not increased tuitions. We have frozen tuitions for a period of time. Yeah, and I think it's important to start from the reason for doing graduate studies. Yes, these individuals are graduate students, and Chantal was I think very, very balanced in her comments. She chose to do graduate studies to gain a durable credential for the rest of her life, a world-class credential. But we have to recognize from the onset that graduate students are the engines of research in our educational institutions, the engines of innovations. Without postdoctoral fellows, without graduate students, research is not going to happen. There will be no research. There will be no leaders of innovation and research in Canada in the future. And so I think it's, number one, it's essential that we support graduate students, understanding they are students, right? It's not a full-time job, but they need to be supported so that they can sustain themselves. It is a full-time course of study. And the institution needs to be sustainable at the same time. And so the balance we have, again, given the limited block funding we have from the province to support only our domestic students, our international students, for clarity, are not supported at all from the province, although they do make the bulk of students in the Faculty of Engineering, for example. Overall, we have about 27% international students at the institution. This is a balance that we need to do to balance those priorities institutionally. We need to charge tuition in order to be sustainable, to keep the lights on and keep the institution functioning. But we also often give back more than that to our graduate students in terms of stipends and supports for field research and for their living expenses in order to, again, meet that research mandate that we have as an institution.
And I'd like to turn to Dr. Hepburn, who you commented in similar ways about this situation. We've had the Bouchard report that the government commissioned that recommended increasing the amount of graduate student scholarships and fellowships, increasing the number, increasing the numbers of Tri-Council grants to researchers. I'm just wondering where you sit with that. Do you agree with the Bouchard Commission, and how do you think the government should act on that?
I mean, I do agree with the Bouchard Commission. In many ways, it's important to recognize, as was just said, that in some fields, particularly high-demand technical fields, the majority of graduate students, especially at the PhD level, are in fact international students who don't qualify for Tri-Council scholarships. But even for the Canadian students, the majority of them are paid out of research grants. And so obviously increasing Tri-Council scholarships, I mean, it's absurd to me that a highly qualified master's student good enough to get a scholarship gets paid less than minimum wage. But you have to remember that for the majority of graduate students, they're paid out of research grants, graduate students and postdoctoral fellows. And so you only address part of the problem by increasing these scholarships. And we underperform in PhD production. And if we don't create jobs for PhDs in Canada and increase the number of PhDs, then we're going to continue falling behind in innovation.
And do you think there's also the risk that we've heard this is true in some situations, that these graduate scholarships and fellowships from the federal government are kind of setting the bar for investigators and departments who are topping up or paying students through other means?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to increase graduate student support across the board. We started an international program of bringing students to Canada quite a long time ago, and the initial target was Indian Institute of Technology students, hoping to keep them in Canada as graduate students. Well, they were getting offers from Stanford and even state universities in the United States that were sort of double and triple what they could get in Canada. So they never came to Canada for graduate work. They could get into top American universities.
Okay.
So that's a challenge even on international side.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Soroka, for 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the witnesses for coming today. I'll start off with Dr. Novog. You had mentioned that there's a program from France that students come over and get educated here. Do they only go back, or do some of them retain here, or how does that program work?
A majority go back. So the French government or their local governments provide the funding for their living expenses to come here and collaborate on research with students, and then most go back, although we have kept a couple over my 15 years here, but it's a rare occurrence.
Okay. Dr. Hranilovich, you had mentioned that you're also doing housing there for students. Was there any federal funding of this program or not, or how much was?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question. We're building the first graduate student residence on campus. It's just off campus. It's in downtown Hamilton. It's a 644-bed facility. It is built under a P3 partnership. There is no provincial or federal support for that construction as it stands. it is the mechanism by which we as an institution need to satisfy our obligation to our students to provide them high quality housing. I can also say that we are embarking on other residence programs at the undergraduate level, though it's not the mandate of this committee, to not only offer competitive advantage to allow all first-year incoming undergraduate students a place to live on campus, but it's also quality of living, a quality of life, and a quality of study issue that we as an institution take seriously.
So by implementing that program that takes one less pressure from them, knowing that at least they have a place to stay, and I know it's not free either, there is a charge to that. Do you feel that that also impacts their studies to some degree, that they're either having to borrow money and be in pressure that way or having an off-the-school job?
It depends on their context, right? So if you're a domestic student from out of province and you don't have a local safety net, yes, you're eligible. You're eligible for some NSERC grants or some other Tri-Council grants. It does take pressure off them in order to have a residence space. They're sure that it's high quality housing. It's available to them. It's not going to increase for the duration of their lease. For international students, I think it's even more important because we are not requiring a credit check. We're allowing them to have access to this high-quality housing without going through something that a typical landlord would do, given that they have a unique relationship with us as students.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Hepburn, you're saying you're bringing in international students, and there's a program and that's working not too badly. What is our retention rate, though, of these students staying in Canada versus going back to their countries?
So we have two international programs. One is for researcher mobility, and there's no expectation. This is to support international research collaborations at the graduate and postdoctoral level. However, we do have a large program for bringing students before their senior year to Canada, and the goal there is to retain them in Canada as PhD students. The retention rate for those is about 20%, which, is whether that's several hundred students who otherwise would not come to Canada or not, I can't say. But the retention rate's about 20% for having those students register as graduate students in Canada.
So it's actually quite low when you're trying to build a country that has great innovation and technology ahead of it, but yet it doesn't seem to be like we're getting the supports that we need to retain these students, though.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the students, this is a competitive program. We bring about 2,000 students to Canada. We've got about 2,000 in country now. By the way, about 100 of them are Ukrainian students. We have an agreement with the Ukrainian government to bring students to Canada. Obviously, those students are very highly qualified from around the world. They can get offers of graduate admission in top American universities, and the stipends are higher.
Yeah, so that's something that definitely we need to work on. Do you feel the government has a good plan in place, or are they just flying by the seat of their pants and when we're dealing with research students?
I'll be careful in my answer. I'm heavily supported by government. I think, my understanding is the Bouchard report will have an impact, and hopefully will have an impact on graduate student support. It's not up to me to try and figure out why there was not increased graduate student support in the most recent budget. There needs to be, and it's very clear.
Okay. Would Dr. Novig or Dr. Harana-Lovic wish to answer that question? Do you feel that the government has a good plan in place, or what areas do you think they could improve upon?
We have about 5 seconds.
You could put that in writing.
You might,
that one I'll have to add in writing.
Yeah. Maybe we can go in writing on that. Thank you, Mr. Soroka. And now over to Mr. Souza for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for participating in today's discussion. It's a complex issue. I think it's understood that the government is a strong supporter and contributor to the industry, academically, venture-wise, innovation-wise, even in the nuclear industry. I recall the previous government actually did away with support for atomic energy, which is a big part of our nuclear industry that ended up falling behind as a result of the lack of support that they provided that is essential for us to do so today to continue on the work of Dr. Novak and others to support Canadian innovation. But the complexity of the situation is also one of partnership, and I appreciate some of the discussions that we're all having, and Dr. Hepburn, you do talk a lot about the private sector, and Dr. Novak, tell me, are you being supported by the private sector?
Yeah, I mean, I want to take the opportunity to thank NSERC, the CFIs. I've had a long career in academia, and I've been, I would say, very well supported from the research side. And I partner quite often with utilities in Ontario, with federal government agencies like ACL, and get funding support from NRCan and other places. So I have a wealth and diverse set of funding, and I think that does help my students gain employment through those contacts and through those networks. I think, you know, what I guess the problem is there's a group of students who are sort of at the very top and will get the fundings of the 50, 60, 70 Ks, whatever they pull in. But there's a group of fundings, you know, I don't mean to use the term loosely, that are sort of like the have-nots, who don't have those maybe top-name scholarships, but sometimes those are the people who will evolve and grow to be the superstars. And those are the people I think we need to support and look at how we can move them above the poverty line so that they can, you know, focus on their studies and focus on their leadership potential.
Yeah, we don't want anybody in the poverty line. We want to be able to support where possible by a collection of means, right? And we do have affordable housing supports, other things that we're doing to provide some of that. Students, myself and others, we all struggled when we were starting off. And young people today, as they were previously, it's not necessarily easy. But then the potential is so much greater after they take on the tremendous work that you provide for them, essentially. I know my PhD nephew, he had a tough time. He became an associate professor. He did what was necessary. He's now bought a house. He's doing very well, and he's expanded his wealth of opportunity while still staying in the academic world, but partnering a lot with business. So in respect to that, how are we? I mean, actually, we haven't heard much from Dr. Sandeki. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You just call me Sam. That's fine.
You mentioned in your testimony that you actually went to UCLA and you did some work there, and you benefited from some Canadian support. And by the time you went to UCLA, you were able to expand yourself. What is the tuition and the cost of going to UCLA versus McMaster University?
I was there as a postdoc and a faculty member, not as a student. But the tuition is significantly higher, especially for international students in the U.S. But much like we do here in Canada, it's mostly equalized through stipends that's provided to students.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I think it's important to note that there is some equalization, some supports in order to compete internationally, and certainly Canada has to do its best. And the lack of, and I think Dr. Hepburn, you talked about the talent supply and the need to nurture that talent supply by enabling those great brains and students that are being nurtured in Canada to remain in Canada. Can you tell me how much of that is being lost? Is there a brain drain going on? Dr. Hepburn?
There is certainly a brain drain going on in terms of the very best students, especially in high demand fields, will go where the very best jobs are. And the very best jobs currently are south of the border in terms of pay, in terms of opportunity, in terms of level of excitement.
Dr. Hepburn, is there a net influx of brains coming to Canada that offset it?
There's a net influx, but as I say, our overall production of PhDs, which is the very, very top level of talent, is below other OECD countries.
And you mentioned that was because the private sector is not hiring enough PhDs or taking advantage of that partnership?
Absolutely. The reason why IIT students go to Stanford is because they know they're guaranteed a good job at high pay in the Bay Area after they graduate. That's, Stanford's a great university. They go there because of that, but they go there because of the opportunities post-graduation.
Thank you. Maintenant, nous avons Monsieur.
Now, Mr. Blanchet-Jonca, for 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. I'm going to take my time for a notice of motion. This is very important, Chair. I've had this committee adopt a motion to invite the Minister of Industry, Science and Innovation to come and testify. We did this on 30 March last, and the clerk.
That we haven't had our 48 hours notice for the notice of motion. So, and we aren't in committee business. So Possibly that's something that you can provide in writing, and then we can have our notice and pick it
Point
up.
of order, can we do it unanimously, though? To the clerk?
If it's the will of the committee, it's around the table, to accept a notice of motion. Say again? Okay. It looks like the committee's good with that. It's just a notice. I apologize. Thank you. Back over to you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, oui, effectivement.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to thank my colleagues he said that this is a notice of presenting of a motion. So, Chair, I would tell you a short story. Back to last March, I requested here with my colleagues to have the committee, the minister, to come and talk about the recent budget, which has been presented, and that was in March. And so the clerk sent dates to the minister, and the minister's office informed the clerk that it wouldn't be possible, and the clerk sent other dates. And I know that the minister is very busy, but this has been 2.5 months that we're waiting after my initial request, and the clerk has had no response. With regard to the invitation to come to the committee, this was 23 March that I presented this, and I think that we would continue to have the minister, invite the minister. Maybe he'll have to come for the 2025 budget, but I think that that's a sign of the interest that the minister has for the work of this committee, which is important for the government and the country. And I think that with regard to the urgency of investing in science and technology, I think that we should increase the amounts of scholarships that have not increased. And I think there are all the indicators that are in red, and experts and researchers say that Canada is failing in the area of science, whereas the competitors are doing everything they can to increase research to fight climate change, for example. But this government has chosen to invest nothing in science in its recent budget. And the minister doesn't even take 1 hour of time to come to report to his parliamentary colleagues here in the committee. And the scientific community is united in stressing the need for increased funding, and I would therefore underscore the importance of this motion and inviting the minister to come and testify. So the motion is as follows: that the committee reiterate its invitation to the Minister of Science and Industry to come and testify to the committee with regard to the 23-24 federal budget, and that the committee once again send an invitation to the minister.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to turn to Dr. Novak, and I'm intrigued by this concept of international exchange. I really love to promote that idea in general. I know how it works at the undergraduate level. My son was going to UBC, and there you can choose from 80 different institutions around the world to do your third year. I'm just interested to hear how it works at the postgraduate level, where you have a little more complicated situations with labs and fieldwork and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, it's more complicated at the grad level, and my experience is it works best when there are good partnerships in place already. So with research collaborators that I have in place in France and in Italy and in Germany and Czech Republic, those are the places that we usually form agreements first, and then we work with the university administration to set up formal exchange programs so that there are now several that students can choose from when they start. But it's certainly not as wide-ranging as at an undergrad kind of exchange program.
So it's instigated from the investigator's side?
Yeah.
So you have collaborators around the world that your students would benefit from
their training programs, from their education. And likewise, we have facilities at McMaster, like the reactor, where people can come. They might not have a reactor on campus. And so we leverage that to give them an experience, and our students get an experience. I think what's different is we sort of while I endeavor to collect extra research fundings to give a stipend for my students to go, there's no formal program that would really promote that and allow students who might not have access to the same research funding I do to participate.
So that was my other question: is who pays for the actual?
So right now it's really, I would say, ad hoc. In some cases, there are some travel grants from the university that are available on a limited basis. There's some from the Society of Professional Engineers. So the student would have to work within, the envelope to try to find funding if their supervisor's not able to fully fund them. We have an agreement, kind of an unspoken agreement with grad students, where if they make the decision to pursue a PhD, they could have got a job. And I'm not willing, nor should we try to pay them, as others have said, an industry wage at that level. But what I try to do in their PhD is ensure that they don't have to take additional loans and debt burden to be able to complete their PhD, right? Because they had an opportunity to leave. So the unspoken commitment is, if they stay, I will try to endeavor to put a funding package in place and travel and covering all those things so that they leave their PhD program no further in debt than when they started.
Super. Thank you very much. Thank you to Dr. Novog, to Saman Siddiqui, John Hepburn, and Steve Ranilovich for being here today, for your testimonies, and that's going to help with our study. I also want to comment that last summer I was at the Bruce Nuclear Facility, and I saw the partnership with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation on the isotopes program, the work that you're doing with the reactors, tremendous partnerships that are going on, and so thank you for your contributions there. If you have any other things that you'd like to submit in writing, please send it in. Our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, to commence our studies on the use of federal government research and development grants, funds, and contributions by Canadian universities and research institutions in partnerships with entities connected to the People's Republic of China and long-term impacts. We need a shorter title on that. We also have the long-term impacts of pay gaps experienced by different genders and equity-seeking groups among faculty at Canadian universities. So we have some witnesses lined up for next Tuesday, and hopefully we'll be able to continue next Thursday as well on those two studies. So is it the will of the committee for us to adjourn? Yes. Great, thank you.